Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's great to have you here. This is an update I've been wanting to do for a while, and I've had some requests. It's actually the most unanimous poll I've ever had. I had 100% of all of you responding and saying you really wanted me to do an update on the Supernote calendar. And, there are some things that have changed. There are things that haven't, but mostly what this video is going to be about is the fact that my thinking around how that should present itself and how you can use that tool to be more productive is evolving. And although my workflow hasn't necessarily changed as much with the way I use it, I can really see it changing as some of the beta features roll out. And we're going to explore some of that in this video. We're going to talk about the new to-do feature. We're also going to talk about using the existing templates that are out there to help you with whether it's daily notes or tasks or different things combined with the calendar to help you really see it as a home page or a landing page because it's really functional. And I think that it gets undersold a lot of times. And it's really valuable for the people who don't want to have one large note file. And again, if that's the way you work and you want to use something like My Daily Organizer, which is fabulous, that Voya at My Deep Guide puts out, absolutely do that. It's however you work best. For me, I like to have things dispersed. I like to have my notes in specific folders for specific topics. And we'll explore that kind of how you can combine the power of the calendar with the power of the upcoming to-do app and even the desktop app we'll look at, which is also still in beta, and how you can make all of those work together to really help you maximize your efficiency. And there are some tips and tricks, so stay tuned, watch the whole video. I think you'll find it interesting. Let's go ahead and get on with the demo, and I will see you here in a little bit. Here we are with the calendar app. As I mentioned in the intro, I've had a lot of requests to update and kind of talk through how the calendar app has changed. And not a ton has changed, but my way of thinking about it really has. And I think that's what I'm going to focus on mostly when I go through this demo. For example, one thing I've always used it for are these quick access features at the bottom. You can always go through and add in through your Google Calendar or just through the calendar disconnected and have all of your meetings show up in this block here, whether you're in the monthly or weekly views. You'll have the same consistency across the bottom. On your left, you have your view notes. So if you already have notes created for that day, or if you create notes that day, it's already there for you. You can also quick create a note right here, and that allows you to just create a note into the root directory, and you can access that at any time. And then here's where you have all of your meetings, and they're very easy to edit. So you can click directly on it and edit that and then back out. If it's connected to your Google Calendar, that's even cooler in some ways because now all of your meetings self-populate across platform. What I want to show you and why this is so important is that this could be your home screen. And I've done a lot more thinking on that over the past few months since I did the original video. For example, I have my 6 notes. Now, what I did was I took 10 or 15 minutes to go ahead and create these notes so that they were pre-populated. First thing we're going to do now that we've opened these notes is we're going to go to the update. You'll see that I have a note created for what we're going to cover in this video. I'll hit open, and when I do that, it pops me into the topics for today. And I think it's really important to think about the calendar as a home page if that's what you want to do. If you want to use this without the big, large PDF hyperlink planners, which are fabulous, like MDO, and they work very well. The only thing with me is I really like to have multiple notes and I don't like to be tied down to one large document. I'd rather have them dispersed in my own folder structure and easier for me to find and manage. You can really use that calendar as a home page. And the reason I say that is you see right here, I went to that note, and then if I go back now to that home screen using that top button, it takes you to the last page you were on. So if you're in the file structure, it's going to take you back to the folder you started from where that note is housed. Here, since we started from the calendar, it takes you back to the calendar. That's really powerful and makes this very functional. Now I can go back into this same screen and I can go back to that calendar update. When I open it, we've already discussed the first thing, which was using the calendar as a home page. Now we can talk about Google integration. What I've done is I've set up my Google Calendar, and you'll be able to see here that it has the settings, and I can log out, and I've got auto sync on. If I create something here, it will transfer to my Google Calendar. If I create it on my Google Calendar, it will transfer here. All of my meetings are synced simultaneously. If I add them in my Google Calendar, they come right here, and I can be really productive that way. When I come back again, I can go back in here and I can say, what's the next thing that I want to do? And for now, we're going to go back to the update. And if you want to see more about how Google integrates with it and everything, I have that in another video that I'll link in the description below. But I did want to just kind of cover it here again really quickly. And it's important to remember that you don't have to integrate Google. You can use this as a standalone, quote unquote, dumb device to where it's disconnected from everything if that's what you'd prefer. It can truly just be a paper replacement without some of these advanced features that I'm showing here. We talked about the Google integration. The next thing that I think is really important about this is building out your notes. And there's two things that you have to remember here. One is about creation date. Your note is going to be tied to the date it was created, not the date last accessed, but the date created. It's important then to think through as you're going through this process. And what I did was I took about 10 to 15 minutes and I created all of my notes for the day. I had these 3 meetings right here that were ready to go, and I created an individual note for each of those things. When you open up this menu, you'll see directors meeting, staff meeting, and vendor meeting. Those are right there and readily accessible for me as these meetings happen throughout the day. Then what I did was I created a few more things. I created daily tasks. And when we get to kind of the wish list items, we'll talk a little bit about the one limitation, which is not being able to write on the daily view. And I think Supernote's working on that, but they haven't got there yet. But you may want to have a daily task list using a template. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. And then you may want to have a miscellaneous note so that you have just the one off, but you have it stored in a specific place so it's not just a floating note. Again, you can always create a new note, but it's nice sometimes if you're a planner like I am where you want it in that specific area. And let me show you what I mean by that. What I did was I went to my quick access and I added this just for this demo. I've got my testing environment here, and then I've got my calendar update. And when I go to the calendar update, you'll see I created all of those notes right here. And it doesn't matter where you create them on the Supernote, it's going to automatically attach them to the date on the calendar that they were created. So it's really powerful. You don't have to be in the calendar to create the note. You don't have to be in the root directory to create the note. Wherever you build that out, if you have different folder structures like I do for every department, every school, every meeting, whether it's vendor type, all those different things, you have that available to you. And it still automatically attaches to that date created. And from here, I can do the quick access again, and I can go directly back to the calendar. You're not going to have that back swipe primarily because we didn't have a node open. We went to a file structure. Now we can go back, we can view our notes again, and we can say, let's go back to that calendar update because we're ticking off these to-do list items. And of course, we'll talk about the to-do list itself soon, but we talked about building out notes. Build them, take 10 to 15 minutes in the morning, build out your notes for the day, and then you've got a planning system that you can use all day, being more flexible to add things throughout the day and making those all connect through the system. The next thing we're going to cover, and this is the beta, so I do want you to be aware, and this is my A5X, so this is my original device. You can do this on the A6X2. It's a little faster, a little snappier, but again, it's a much smaller footprint, and I just prefer this one if I have the ability to use it, and I tend to still do that. But the to-do list is in beta on both of these, and it should be rolling out soon. I've talked to Rada, and they are expecting to roll this out very soon. And here in a little while, we'll look at how this looks in the app as well. What I did for purposes of this video is I went back in. So you go back to your calendar. Again, that's your home screen. And I go into my notes and I go to where it says daily tasks. And when I go to this daily task, you're going to see some different task list items. I can go ahead and I can fill in my date and I can circle my day that I'm on. Now, what I can do is circle this first task. And then I'm going to say, I want to create a to do. So I'll click on the calendar. I'll click on the little check mark here. It's going to recognize that text and it's going to take me directly to the to-do list. I can set a date for that if I want to. We're going to do this today because this is my daily notes, but I can set that into the future if I'd like to. And you'll see it went to the social tab because that's where I've set this particular demo to go. And I'll hit add. And what's really cool about this is here you are, you've set that task, you're ready to go, everything's there, and there's this little notebook icon. And when I hit that, it's going to take me back to this node. Now I'll add my second task. So I'll circle the next one. And I want it to be there. It's going to recognize that text. And there is our second one. I'm going to set the date for today. Hit OK. And add. And again, this takes you back every time to that same note. Now you have to do that one at a time. Again, that's a limitation. So it might be easier, and I'll show you here in a minute in the Supernote Partner app, how you can actually type this in directly. They sync simultaneously across, and we'll go ahead and I'll probably speed up the film here to show you the rest of them and how we got them in there. And there you go. Now we have all of our tasks in one place. And then when we're ready to check those off, we can just tick. And now it goes into this completed list at the bottom. And then we can change and go back. What's really neat about that is, this isn't a perfect system right now, but what you can still do, say we check that one off, we installed the new software updates, we go back to the notebook. And if you want to feel that satisfaction again of doing it here, you just switch over to your pen and you can check it there as well. It's not something that's quite as elegant as what I think they're going for, which is linking these two, because this is not a hyperlink. So in order to actually access these, you have to go to the to-do list, which is a really easy swipe to go directly back to the to-do. Then you can just click these off here. And when you're all done for the day, you could go back to your notebook and just click them to be done. Again, it's something that makes adding the tasks really easy in the moment. You go ahead and write all of this down, go back after your meetings and turn them into to-dos, and then make that list out for you. It's really kind of a cool thing. So we'll go ahead and mark all of these off. We'll say we did all of that. We were super, super productive in these few minutes. And now we have that workflow completed. And we'll show that there's nothing left to do. Now we're back in the calendar. So let's go back to our notes and let's look at the directors meeting. Let's say we had the directors meeting. And again, I set up the framework and I put in my title for the note and I go ahead and turn that into a heading. I've covered before that I do individual notes. So this note may only be a page or 2 pages or 3. They're not going to be 20-page documents. I don't use the headings primarily as a table of contents. I think if you do, that's great. It works very, very well to be able to do that. You just click here and you can see all of the different headings that you have. For me, this is for when I'm done with the project or I'm leaving a workplace or a place of business, whatever it is, or I'm done with a contract and I want to combine all of these notes. Eventually, I'm hoping Supernote will allow you to export complete notebooks and combine them. Right now, you have to do it by going into a notebook, selecting all of the pages, and then copying all of them to another notebook. You can't just select 2 notebooks and merge them. But eventually, I think they're going to get to that. But what's really neat is if you do this, when you combine those notebooks that way, all of these headers track. At one employer, when I left, I combined all of the notebooks into one large PDF, and then I could go through and use this table of contents to navigate all of my notes in that larger note. And again, then you could export it as a PDF. Unfortunately, it's not clickable at that point, but at least you have the record. I usually do redundancy, so I backed it up as a PDF, I exported it as a Word document, and I exported it as a note so that I can always go back and find that information. Let's say our directors meeting was awesome. And again, now we just go back and we are back to our calendar. And we can go in next and we could go into the staff note, we could go into the vendor planning note, but we don't have to do that. And then you have your miscellaneous notes. Say I just want to do a quick note. I know it's for this day. I've gone ahead and I've used my naming convention by date. I click in here and I say, remember to call marketing. Maybe that's a task that I didn't go to my task list. I wasn't thinking about it. I took this as a quick note on the fly. I can still turn it into one. And that's where that lasso, just circle it to do. And that's going to recognize. And there it is. Call marketing, say today, and add. Again, extremely functional. And then it'll take me back to now that note that we were using for that. And now you're back. Really neat. And now let's go back to our calendar note and see what we still have to talk about for the update. So we talked about using the to-do list with a template. And there you go. And then there's the daily note template. You'll see I added in the daily note here for the daily calendar. And one main reason for that, and what I've mentioned before, is that you can't write on the daily note. Now, I didn't fill this all the way out because I don't tend to use this as much. I mostly use the notes feature and functionality. But at the same time, I think it's really important to know that if this is how your workflow is conducted and the way that you're most productive, this is an option, and you can add in that daily template and you can make notes and you can block time and you can put across the top here what the hours are. You can do all kinds of things with this to make it really functional for you. And it's very useful. But again, always taking you back to that main screen. And the only reason for the daily note that I think it's important for is because you have no ability to do that on the daily view. But while we're here on the monthly, one thing that I think is important to note is you can write on the monthly view. You'll notice here on this day, I put LMS really big. And then if I go into the weekly view, you'll see I put LMS transition. What that could mean, it could be a trigger to me or a reminder to me to know that most of these big topics here are going to concern that larger topic. We're meeting with as directors to figure out what to do next. Then we're having a staff meeting to kind of talk about that. And LMS, just so you know, is learning management system. We're actually doing that project at work. So it's top of mind and it's what I put in here. And then the vendor meeting is with the actual company. Now, none of this is actually real. This was made for the demo. But the idea is that you could do all of those things. And then maybe you add something to the list. You go, okay, it's LMS is important, but I also need to talk to IT about a different project. So IT maintenance. Now I can make that quick note. And you can do that anywhere in here for any day. Let's go back to our calendar note. So our calendar update. So we talked about a daily note template. We talked about the miscellaneous note. We kind of did that one out of order, but that's okay. The last thing I want to talk about and what we'll end with here, which I think is still what they really need to do, and we've hit on it a little bit with the idea of the daily calendar. When you go into that daily calendar view, it's awesome. You can see all of the things that have been put in by date, by time, and they're selectable. So you can open it up, you can delete it, you can edit it, all of that from right here. You can go ahead a day, back a day, all of that's available. You can add a new meeting right here. It really works well. The biggest issue is that this should be writable. If I am in a meeting with someone and I have something come through, whether it's a text message or an email where somebody's requesting a meeting, I should be able to pencil that in, write that in right here so that I can go back later and add the actual event, and then that would sync with my Google Calendar. I just don't understand why it's not there. And maybe it's just, maybe it's a programming thing. I don't know. And I'm hoping that Supernote can really deliver on that. I think it's really important. You go back with this little back arrow. Now you're back to the weekly view. And then you go back to the monthly view. That's a little bit different because you lose this navigation piece here and you lose this bottom bar when you're in the daily view. And I think that's just to maximize the real estate and make it so you can see your full day on the screen. But again, those are just small things that maybe if they did just icons or they thought through a little bit of just making the experience consistent. You can always manually sync your Google Calendar right here or Outlook. Remember, this also does Outlook. I don't want you to think it's only Google. That just happens to be the ecosystem we're in at work. And the other thing is multiple calendars. If you're like me, you have multiple calendars on your computer for your device, and you cannot do that here. The advantage to doing it on a computer is you can color code those calendars. That wouldn't be possible on e-ink, but at least you could have all of the meetings. I know I have things on all these days because of the dot. I know that when I go to the weekly, I have things there because there's a dot. And I can see all of the meetings and I can advance if I have multiple days and pages. And then when I go into the daily, I can see everything that's booked up. But what I can't see are those ancillary calendars. If you have a shared calendar that you work with people at work, if you have a personal calendar like I do for the family, I can't access that here. I'm forced to go to my phone. I'm forced to go into my computer to be able to find that information. That is a real limitation for the device. And the last thing we're going to show really quickly, I said this was the last thing, and it is on the actual device as far as what we were going to cover for the calendar on the Supernote itself. And that was the wish list. But one thing I do want to show is the desktop experience. Here you'll see that I'm mirroring the screen from the Supernote right here to my desktop, and I also have the desktop app pulled up over here. And what you'll see, all of those tasks that we did are showing up in the desktop app. And if I click on the notes, and of course there's nothing in miscellaneous notes, but let's go to our task list. All of that is here. And it hasn't synced, it doesn't look like yet, to show the check marks, but it does show everything else. It shows that integration, it links you to it, and it pulls that over. It's really that quick in how it works. Now, this is all beta, so I do want you to realize that you're not going to see this experience right now unless you're on the beta release. If you are, they're testing this, they're refining it, they're trying to get it completely taken care of so that you can have the best experience possible. What's really cool here, though, is you can also type directly in the desktop app. And let's say that we want to meet with faculty about LMS. And we'll just say that. We'll go ahead, we'll assign it for today, we'll confirm, and then we'll hit enter. When we hit enter, it pops up. And what you'll see if we go to our to-do list, so let's go ahead and select down. We'll go to do, and that's already there. So let's do another one just to show you how fast that works. As long as you're connected to the same Wi-Fi, this is going immediately to the device. It's also going to the Supernote cloud, which they're eventually going to mirror with what you're seeing here on the desktop and on the mobile app, which is currently on Android. So you have a mobile app on Android, you have a desktop app on Windows. They're in development for Linux and for Mac on the desktop app, and they're working on an iOS app. I'm going to say here, let's add this other one, meet with instructional design team. I'm going to go ahead and select my date, confirm it, hit enter, pops up. What you'll see is over here in just a second, it should pop right up. There it is. It's that quick. And then I'll go ahead and mark, sorry, I was marking on the app. I'll go ahead and mark both of these complete on the Supernote and show you how that talkback works. I hit both of them as complete, and you should, in just a second, there they are. Very quick, very seamless. And again, you won't see a notebook here because those were manually added through this app. I'm hoping that eventually they might have a way to be able to add to do maybe from here where you could right click or do something else to make that work. In the app, you can also do a lot more things than you could before. You can drop and drag files in, but we won't go into that. I've done a little bit on that before, and I'll link those videos in the description if you want to find out more about that. But that's really it. I will talk to you in a minute to close things out. Hey everyone, thanks for hanging in with me. Hopefully you made it to the end. We had a lot of really cool stuff that came up as I was even going through, just realizing and thinking through the process even more than I had. Especially, I had my little script and I had all of the things we wanted to cover, which we did. But there were also some things that evolved throughout that conversation with myself based on what I've heard from each of you. This is a really powerful app. It really works well. It's something other devices don't really have. Now, true, books devices, you can have the full Google or Outlook experience, but it's not in a concise and tamped down way the way the Supernote is. Devices like the Remarkable, you don't get any of that functionality. They do have the boxes that you can make for a checklist, but it doesn't integrate in a seamless way. And to be fair, some of these were beta features. Again, I'm on the beta, so I'm going to talk about it. And it may look a little different when it rolls out for the stable release. And if it does, we'll cover those changes as well. But thank you again for hanging in there. We're over 800 subscribers now. I can't express enough how much I appreciate the support and your engagement, and the fact that this is something that you really wanted as a community to see an update on. So to be able to make that update and deliver that has really uh, been a lot of fun. Anyway, please like, subscribe. If you've come back and watched multiple videos, hit that subscribe button. I have over 2,000 return viewers that are coming back to see multiple videos that I create, but you're not all hitting that subscribe button. So do that for me. It'll help me out a ton. It'll build an even bigger community. And if you look down through the comments, if you look in the community posts, you're going to see that we engage and we talk a lot as a community about all of these different facets. Be on the lookout for new things coming out, an upcoming live stream on Obsidian, and just all kinds of cool stuff. But until next time, remember, as I always say, if you want to be an agent of change, just bring yourself, your viewpoint, and your perspective to the table. Talk to you soon. Have a great one.